Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Cindy King. Says here that you're going to be working and listening. Well, I hope I can communicate thoroughly enough to where, you catch it. All right. Oh, what a day. What a day. What a day. We're going to talk densities today. Yep. We're going to talk density. And density in embroidery represents how many stitches are in a specific area. For example, good morning. Are you really sewing caps? Good job. That would be Cindy sewing caps. Um, so yeah, in like it's how many stitches run across your fill. Oh gosh. Okay, so Um, and I know that I said specifically for small lettering. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over density in general. And then oh my gosh, Cindy, 288 caps. It's going to be an all day adventure, isn't it? Yes, it is. So we're going to go over density in general, just the basics. And then we're going to talk about density for small lettering. Um, because the smaller it is, the tighter those stitches get, and you really don't want that. Okay, so where are we? I have some density swatches set up on my screen. Let's see if we can do this, because I'm technologically challenged. Okay, so I'm going to enlarge this a bit. All right. So, Cindy, what you may or may not be able to see is I have a set of 5 green 1-inch blocks, squares, and then below that is a set in blue. Then I also have some column stitches. And the reason I did this was because I wanted to set up samples of densities, for example, in the fills. Now the top ones, the ones in green, the green squares, first thing I want to tell you is they all use the same underlay. It's just a standard tatami underlay. The blue squares are the exact same thing as the green as far as their density settings and their size, but they're using a double tatami underlay. And I'm going to explain to you why that's important. Each one of these has a different density setting. The first one is a dot 20. Then we have, oh, I must have done something there. Then we have standard dot 40. A dot 40 density setting is generally the setting you use for your 40 weight thread. The reason being is that the spacing in a dot 40 density is set to align to allow the stitches of 40 weight thread to lay right next to each other. Sorry, I have a cat working my desk with me today, and she likes to step on the keyboard. We don't want that. So that's why a 40 weight thread uses a dot 40 density. That's your standard. Good morning, Woody. Good morning. Woody Sherwood here to visit with us this morning. Good morning. Um, you can set other things. You can set your density to something else with your 40 weight thread, but that's just the standard. Okay. So the next one I have, so we have 20, 40, then we have 60. Then we have 80, and we have a density setting of 1, which means that there's 1 millimeter space between the stitch runs. Okay. I'm going to change my background because I want you to see how much space there is in these wider densities, these larger densities. Let's see, go to selected. Yeah, that's not going to do it for us. What if we did? Oh, there we go. There you go. So the larger the number, the more space there is between your stitches. And your density is measured not between each run of stitches, but each point at the end. So from here to the next point, let's see if we can make that larger for you. So from here to the next point is 1 millimeter. Good morning, Barb. It's nice to see you this morning. Good morning. Where the one next to it, from here to the next one, is 0.8 of a millimeter. So it's 20% smaller or more dense than the 1 millimeter, than the dot 1, or excuse me, the 1 dot. Okay, but if we go way over here, our dot 20 density, that's pretty heavy. I've got another screen I'm going to show you here in a minute. I want to go back up to these these lighter densities. Now remember I said this one was just a standard tatami underlay. And this one has a double underlay. And the reason I do that, the reason that is done is to lift the top thread up higher off the fabric, to give a stronger illusion of coverage. On screen here, in the software, we can see the fabric bleed through. That's what this white is. This white background is our fabric. We can see the fabric bleed through. And you will have some fabric bleed through. But just know that you can compensate for that with your underlay. I'm going to switch over to the other screen now. This one, I set up same exact blocks, just a copy and paste from the previous one, because I wanted you to see this. You see that line of stitches? Can we go up any higher? Yep. If I were to measure, these are the points. These are those edge points like that we saw in the dot 80 density and the 1 millimeter density. I'm going to measure this, and it is dot 20, just like we had it set, from one point to the next, one point to the next. The thing I want you to be aware of, and let's see if we can do this. You ready? Oh, look at that. We're going to change that to dot 75. Oops, that didn't work. All right, try that again. Dot 75. This little bit right here, that represents your needle. Where'd it go? .75. All right. Doesn't want to play well. The point I'm trying to make is if you have a needle that is 0.75 millimeters and your spacing here is only 0.2, your needle penetrations are going to be larger than your density settings. And what's going to happen, excuse me, what's going to happen is your needle is actually going to cut your fabric. Your needle is going to stitch in the same place multiple times before it moves far enough to create a new penetration. And that's going to affect your fabric. It's going to affect your fabric. It's going to affect your puckering. It's going to affect the pull. Remember, we talked about pull compensation before? It's going to affect the pull. Density is not always the end all be all to correcting a coverage issue. I guess that's where I want to go with this. You need to find other means to prevent your fabric show through if that's, and you have that when you have extreme contrast in color. You want to find other means. Okay, so that's basic density. Same thing here with the satin columns. Now we do use a really tight density when we're working with 3D foam. It's because the foam is going to support the thread, and we need that tight density to cut the foam to get a clean tear away. All right, so we want to talk small lettering. Let's see, what kind of letters do we want to start with? Want to do an A? How about we just do the vowels? A, oops, A, E, I, O, U. Now the default on my settings is 10 millimeters. Yeah, let's cut this and paste and change our background. Get rid of our hoop. All right, so that's a 10 millimeter letter. 10 millimeters you can stitch all day with 40 weight thread. All day, no problems. Gives you a nice clean stitch. And this is at a .3 density. That's the default setting I have in my system. And you can see from here to here is going to be a .3 millimeter. All right. And that's a good coverage because, and we're going to try this again. Oh, there we go. This, God, that can't be right. I know, I'm just going on here. Okay, so the nice thing about this particular density is the needle penetrations are not going to overlap each other, not going to cause a perforation. You get that when the density is too tight. In fact, let's go ahead and change our density. All right. That's a .17. Remember, your needle is 3/4 of a millimeter, and this is less than 1/4. That needle's going to go in there and it's going to make a big old wide hole, and then you're going to have to jump over to find another big old wide hole. Okay, but again, that's a 10 millimeter letter at our standard 30, but we want to talk about small lettering. We're going to drop this down to a 5 millimeter. And again, in my opinion, through my experience, a 5 millimeter letter can be stitched with a 40 weight thread. Again, all day, every day, no problems. If you decide to stitch a 5 millimeter letter with 60 weight thread, just know that the 60 weight thread is 20% thinner, which means that our spacing is 20% more, okay? And it's going to show the letters being more open. The density is going to be more open. If you're going to stitch a 5 millimeter letter with 60 weight thread, you want to go the other direction. You want to change the density to be tighter. So that's a 5 millimeter letter. Now, if we change these down to, where'd they go? A 4 millimeter. Again, with a 40 weight thread, it's very doable. But again, you can stitch it with a 60 weight thread. Just know that your density is going to show lighter unless you reset it to increase it, that 20%. But we want to talk about tiny, tiny lettering. The software will only allow us to go as small as 2.5 millimeters tall. That's about the size of your pinky fingernail. All right. You cannot stitch these at a full density with 40 weight thread. You can stitch them with 40 weight thread, but it requires some adjustment to the density. You have to change the density because your needle is going back and forth. And remember your penetration, you've got your 7511 needle is going to be, what is that? Almost a third of the whole height of your letter. So you want to open that density so that it appears, with the smaller lettering, it appears to be tighter. We're going to do this with a 40 weight thread, which means we're going to open our density so that it stitches cleaner. Let's take this down, show you stitch penetrations. Come back up. So here's a stitch, here's a stitch, here's a stitch. All right. And your thread, your 40 weight thread, let's see if we can find a way to make that happen. Is okay. So this is your 40 weight thread. This is one stitch, one layer of one thread. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches going across. And your 40 weight thread That is just one thread in your 2.5 millimeter stitch. One length of thread, 40 millimeters, 40 weight thread going across. There are only going to be 5 threads going across. What is this, Cindy? I still am not sewn with 60 weight thread. I'm afraid I will like it and then have to invest in all those colors. Um, I have a cheat. Well, in my day we called it a cheat. I think they're now calling them hacks. Uh, I will show that to you in just a moment. You don't have to buy all the colors. Not in a full count anyways. I guess the point I want to make with regard to tiny stitches, tiny lettering, is that you need to adjust your density to accommodate it. If I put a full density in here and then go to show you those stitches again, change that to a dot 4. Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches. That's a lot of thread. That's too much thread for that small little space. Do you guys have any questions regarding density? Do you understand why density is really important in your stitch out? Remember, it's going to play into your push and pull. It's going to play into your coverage. It's going to play into the puckering. Heavier stitches pull things in more, just like cinching up that shoelace. It's going to pull it really tight, and the more shoelaces you have, the tighter it's going to get. Cindy, you've got a good point here. You may have said this, but also knowing the product you're sewing on. Exactly. For example, when I stitch a hat, I use a tighter density because I know that the fabric of that hat is not going to shift and pull with the hat because it's got so many layers. It's got the fabric, it's got a glue layer, it's got a buckram layer, and sometimes it even has an inner lining. So I know that's not going to pull. So I'll use a tighter density to give a bolder look to the lettering. But I would not use that tighter density on a quilting fabric because, again, it will pull in and scrunch up your fabric. Let's see. Woody says, I'm not going to do lettering in 15 different shades of purple, so you don't need a full spectrum of 60 weight. This was addressed to Cindy. Just use what you really need. Okay, let's go back to that 60 weight question. Let's see if I can find what I'm looking for here. I'm playing with my computer, looking for a video. Let's see. Where to go? Nope, that's not what I want. So, I have a video that I made maybe 2 years ago. All right, Carly. Don't need you in my face. I'm going to put it up here in the comments and paste. I called it Spin the Bobbin because what it tells you is that you don't need to buy cones of 60 weight thread. Buy bobbins of 60 weight thread. I buy an assortment of colors in a bobbin. Let's see, copy image. I don't know if it'll let me show you this. And paste and copy and oops, that's a terrible image. But here, you really can't see it. It's a terrible image. But I buy an assortment pack of 60 weight thread bobbins in different colors, right? They're all pretty much gentle. They're not like what he said, not going to have 60 shades of purple, but it does have a purple in there. And then it uses a like a spool pin holder that you put on your machine, and you just spin the bobbin instead of using a cone. Let's go back here. Yeah, let's go back to our page. Did I mention that I have a cat on my desk? Yeah, she's trying to fish under my keyboard for something. Okay, so again, any questions regarding density? Last week, and it's posted in YouTube, was our conversation regarding push and pull. Special needle size. Oh, good question. Cindy, yes, special needle size. When you're using different weight threads, you want to use a needle. If you're going smaller, you want to use a smaller needle. And the reason the whole reason you're using the 60 weight thread is so as not to cause larger penetrations in your fabric, right? So if you're using a 60 weight thread, you want to use a 65-9 needle. Now this will still, the eye of that needle is still long enough to allow the thread not to cause friction, not to pass through the needle easily. If you can use your 75-11, but you're going to make a larger penetration. You do not want to use a 40 weight thread in your 65-9 needle. And that's because the eye of that needle is not large enough to accommodate the thread. It will friction against the needle and will cause fraying and shredding of your thread, and it will break your thread. So make sure that you always use a needle. Now, while I'm thinking of it, you can use a 70-10 needle with 40 weight thread and get a smaller penetration, but you'll need to run your machine slower. Oh, Woody, you got it. Woody, you should have taught this class. Yes, smaller needle if you're using smaller thread. Increasing the density means more penetrations, so you want those holes to be smaller. Oh, thank you, Woody. You said it perfectly. Thank you, Cindy. We try to pass on good information. So before I close out today, I want to remind you, if you haven't, if you're not part of my Facebook group, Quick to Stitch, or even following my Quick to Stitch page, I want you to know that I posted in there my schedule, my travel schedule for this year. The end of this month is DAX in Kansas City. I'll be driving there. Thank you, Woody. But you got this one down. You know this one. Woody was just saying that he's just learning as he goes. And I just wanted to make sure he understands that he understands density. So, again, the end of this month, the last weekend of February, I will be driving to Kansas City for DAX. So that means I'll have an all day travel day there, an all day travel day back. But I'll try to pop in and say hey. Um, and then the following weekend, the first weekend in March, I will be traveling again. I'll be going to Lafayette, Louisiana for the Everything Embroidery Market. If you guys are going to be there, say hi. Find me. Say hi. How you doing? Sit down. We'll chat. Um, so again, I'll have a travel day. I'll be there. I'll be working. I'll take my equipment with me, not my embroidery machine. That would be a bit cumbersome as a carry on the plane. Uh, but I will bring my computer with me and I will be doing some work. And again, I will try to pop in and say hey and show you what's going on. In the meantime, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. You know where to find me, quicktostitch.com, email quicktostitch at gmail.com. And all right, then. You guys all have a great weekend, and we'll see you online.
Wasn't that fun? Do you have more questions? Do you want to learn something new? Join me at quicktostitch.com for coffee and conversation, and we'll talk about it. Embroidery machines, designs, and business. Hope to see you soon. Bye now.